Welcome to Entrepreneurs, Executives, and Eccentrics, a podcast dedicated to the stories, strategies, and secrets of remarkable individuals. Join us as we engage in enlightening conversations with intriguing entrepreneurs, accomplished executives, and fascinating eccentrics, exploring their journeys, triumphs, and the unconventional wisdom that has shaped their success. In this episode, we talk with Alexis Sikorsky, an entrepreneur and advisor who helps founders grow their companies and prepare for successful exits. We explore what founders often get wrong about scaling, why leadership and management require different skills, and how early exit planning can change the outcome. Alexis also shares lessons from building, nearly losing, and ultimately selling his own company.
Hello, Alexis. Tell me who you are and what you do.
Hello, Scott. Thanks for having me. What I am and what I do are actually the same thing. I'm at heart and from childhood an entrepreneur. That's all I always been, and that's probably all I will always be.
That's a fantastic answer. Okay, so this started really young then, in your teenage years, I'm assuming. What was that first business? What was the idea?
So my first company was when I was 15. So don't think AI, right? Or don't think computer science, because that was 1973, so pre all of that. My first company was import of cosmetics from Eastern country to Switzerland that I did in my parents' garage. I'm pretty sure my parents still haven't completely forgiven me for that.
The stuff is still in the garage at this point. It's still there.
It's been in the garage for a while, yeah.
I bet. Okay, so currently, but your current incarnation, right, is that you help founders exit, or you plan for the exit.
My life as an active entrepreneur is over. It was over the day I sold my company in 2019. The reason my life as an entrepreneur is over is twofold. One is I'm old-fashioned. I'm a 50-something white male, and I don't believe in work-lifestyle balance. I don't believe you can be an entrepreneur part-time and then take really good care of your family and then do some sport and drink some protein shakes. I think when you're an entrepreneur, you're all in and that's your life. And the second reason is from experience and from seeing a lot of my peer exited entrepreneurs. When you exit with enough money that you don't need to work another day in your life, they tend to be, and I've been there. I'd be lying to say I haven't had my mistakes, but we tend to be very, very, very bad at starting up again, because the skill it takes to start a company from scratch, we kind of outgrown them and we lost them. Like a very simple example, and I think that's the main reason a lot of us fail trying new adventures, is like the first skill you need is the ability to look at small numbers, right? Do I hire a personal assistant because this personal assistant is basically half my EBITDA? You lose that when you run a 500 people company. And it's really hard to go. And I remember I did invest in small companies and help young founders. And it's a blur. I don't see these numbers anymore. I'm not used to see them. So that's one of the reasons. So yeah, now what I do is, and that's going to sound super new agey and a bit ridiculous, but I really get my joy in meeting and helping entrepreneurs, and mainly help them not make the same mistake I made, right? So it's super interesting doing that. So that's what I do now.
I've talked to several founders who exited and then got really bored, and in 2 years redid another idea and then spent all the money because it was the very nature of the reason they succeeded was they were scrappy. The very nature, they were hard, and now they're nice, fat, and comfortable. And now they're
Exactly.
spending money on stupid shit, right? They don't need because they always dreamed of having it. You know, when they, I need the enterprise version of HubSpot. I need this.
It's only 50,000. Doesn't matter. It's nothing. And I still have this reflex. So come on, let's not spend too much time about that. We're only talking about 50,000, right? And it doesn't work.
No, because you'll destroy whatever money you brought to the table. It's almost like you haven't been to war for a while, and then you 3 or 4 years, you're like, oh, we're going to war. Let's bring all the battleships. Let's bring all the whole army. Let's bring everybody, and then work.
Are you quoting that, referring to some kind of politicians in a country near to you, or just as a general example?
Definitely not. I'm definitely going to skirt around that particular topic because it's a dangerous time. So, but yeah, it's
okay. I'm French. I can say whatever I want.
That's true. You're also in a pretty safe spot comparatively, but yeah, no, it's the skill that takes to start something and the skill it takes to finish something are two different skills, which is why the founders typically they're in the problem halfway through. Because the skill that got them there won't be the skill that gets them out of there.
Yeah, to the point that they switch from being a fantastic asset to almost a liability if they don't. Right? But you can transition, right? I'm not the kind of guy who says, like, when private equity get in, you have to remove the founders, and when you get to a certain point, you need a new CEO. I actually rarely believe in that.
Really?
I think
I thought the general knowledge, the general belief system was that you have to go get a wartime consigliere, so to speak, in Godfather terms, right? To go take the company over, because that's a different skill set, a different mindset.
No, actually, wartime consigliere would be a very good title for me. But consigliere, right? You travel through Europe, mean advisor, doesn't mean the boss. The consigliere is not the boss, is the one who advises the boss. I totally believe in wartime consiglieres. I think it's one of the most important positions that you need to fill in a company when you reach a certain level. But he's not the boss, and he cannot be, and he should not be the boss.
Yeah. So have you seen a history of success with founders moving into the scale? Because it's basically, it's founding, right? And then there's scaling, and there's a lot in the middle, but the scaling is typically a different skill set. You're making decisions you won't see fruit from for a year. Whereas when it's a smaller company, you make decisions and every day you see movement, right? Yeah. But then you get to a longer kind of timeline, and a lot of people get bored.
Unpopular opinion, won't be the first one you hear from me. Yep. I think most successful companies are founder-led up until pretty big.
Fascinating.
Things your Microsoft and your Apple and your SpaceX and your Tesla and they haven't hired an outside CEO. And usually when they try, think Apple, it doesn't work. So I don't think replacing the CEO is the solution. Obviously, we're not talking $1 billion company. I know nothing about $1 billion company. My universe is $100 million company, right? So $1 billion company, I know nothing about. But in your from 1 million EBITDA to 10, 15 million EBITDA, which is the universe I navigate, I think growing the founder in his job as a CEO is the way to do it.
It's fascinating. And it's all now, okay. So that definitely goes against it's contrary to everything I thought I knew, which is not much, right? Especially at that kind of $15 to $50 million scale is a mystery to me so far. Okay. So you're saying it's easy to train that founder up to be a better, I guess, leader. Not necessarily, it's more than leadership, right? Because it's also kind of your North Star, and what was the reason you built the company, and like, what do you believe in the product, all the kind of things that goes to what it is to be a founder, right?
Okay, so you touch on many points. First of all, I never said it was easy. I said it was possible. And second, you used a word in there that is very often misunderstood, and it's the word leader. So when you start a company, you are the leader, you are the manager, you are the head of operations. If you're a tech company, you're the CTO, you're the head of sales, right? Basically. And then you slowly delegate to that. And then the question becomes, are you a leader or are you a manager? And that's something that I very sadly learned about myself very late in my professional life. And I really wish somebody has told me that earlier. That would have saved me a lot of time and a lot of money. The skill for leadership and the skill for management not only are not the same, but I'm yet to meet somebody who has both. Leader is about having a voice and having people follow you, because, a leader without followers is just a guy having a walk. But management is strictly organizational skill. And what I learned about myself is I absolutely terribly and irremediably suck at management. Even now, with my teeny tiny practice that employ 14 people, that's like basically me and a bunch of friends, first thing I did, first hire, was a manager, because I do not manage. I'm not good at it. So the CEO's job in a founder-led company, note the term, right? Founder-led company. You never say in a founder-managed company. The job of a founder is not to manage,
So
is to
true.
lead.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's super, super, super important. If you try to manage, well, if you're not a leader and you cannot lead, you're probably not going to get to your 10, 15 million. Probably. I think leadership can be taught in a way, but I think most people who decide to do this crazy, stupid, risky, expensive, painful journey of being an entrepreneur, most of them are natural leaders, I think.
Yeah, it takes a certain type of human to believe in something you can't see, nor touch, nor experience. It's some future goal that you haven't got to yet. It takes a certain kind of person, right, to imagine the thing that doesn't exist. And I think delusional is the word you're looking for in the beginning.
Yeah.
And delusion gets you into some profitability eventually.
Yeah,
It can.
delusion is a very, very required skill. A part of research I'm doing for maybe a third book is I'm growing into the conviction that a very significant numbers of founders actually suffer from clinical ADHD, which is my case. I just got diagnosed this year. I didn't realize. And I think like talking to a lot of founders might be very common, because if you don't have that, it's very difficult. Yeah, people without ADHD need stuff like food and sleep and vacation and family time, and that stuff that's very incompatible with the beginning of a founder-led company.
Right, they need boundaries, and ADHD doesn't. No boundaries.
Work-lifestyle balance. Yeah, no, it's not going to work. You don't get that.
Right. Okay. So what was the company that you sold? What company was that? What was the thesis? What were you selling?
Okay. It would be a bit pretentious to call it a thesis, so I'll tell the history of it. It feels much more aligned to the reality. The year is 2000. You're old enough to remember 2000 is the moment where internet migrates from being a presentation tool to becoming a proper application tool. It's the very beginning of e-commerce, of proper online database management. And I was partner with my best friend, who still is my best friend, who still works inside the company. And this guy was finishing his PhD in theoretical physics. Smart as a whip, like double my IQ, easy. And we decided, you know what, like we're pretty good at this coding thing on internet. Let's start a bespoke internet development company. So that's 2000. And as you recall, 2000, the market was just waiting for us to start a new internet development company. But we did well. We worked for British and American Tobacco. We worked for the America's Cup. We're doing all the all the press accreditation for the America's Cup. So we were doing okay. We grew the company like massively in 3 years from 2 employees to I think like 8, and from 0 revenue to maybe $1.5 million or something. And in 2003, almost by accident, I realized that a company I employed a few people from went bankrupt. It was electronic document management software for private bank. And through massive luck and a few luckily good decision, I ended up buying the source code of the company and all the client of the company and hired all the staff. So we moved from a tiny 8 people to a massive, like I think 20 people at the time. And suddenly we have 45 clients who are all private bank in Switzerland and Singapore, Dubai. Like it was pretty international. So immediately I shut down the bespoke development because it took me 5 minutes to understand the difference in margin between software development and bespoke development. We grew from there to 2008. So at that point, we are 11, 12 million revenue, 3 million EBITDA. I'm the king of the world. I'm the smartest person you ever met. I'm convinced I know everything. And I'm convinced like nothing could ever go wrong. Like, of course, like in 2008, in the banking industry, nothing could absolutely ever go wrong. And one day I lose 75% of my revenue. Global financial crisis, subprime. All my clients called me and said, by the way, we're not buying anything from you. And lost literally, I had 25% of revenue who was maintenance revenue, 75% who was new licenses and implementation. I lost the 75%. And then from there, I get what I call the grind, which is the 5, 6, 7 years of proper unpleasantness, where I had to fire 2/3 of my company. And you're a founder, you know that when you are a small company still, all these people are your friends. They're your friends, they're your family. Every year I'll do a barbecue in my garden and invite them with their family. I knew all their kids. I knew like one day I have to fire them all. Still to that day, by far the worst day of my life. Like by far, nothing like come even close. Anyway, surviving till 2014, where I get back to the point with some creative accounting, you could say the company is break even. So company back to break even, having going through 6 years of every month, you ask yourself, like, are you in a situation of good money chasing bad money? Mortgaging my house, being in proper survival mode every month, asking yourself, like, do I continue or do I fold? And at that point, where we're back to break even, I received a phone call from a private equity. Again, you're founders, you know, you get phone call from private equity twice a week. You never answer because they're usually like pure bullshit, just people inquiring. But I was working with my brother at that time. And my brother told me, you know what? Talk to these people. I have a feeling. They started the private equity by selling a banking software. They're French. They understand your culture. Call them. Okay. Call them and they say, next week we're coming to see you in Geneva. So they came, and again, super lucky. I decided I'm going to be super honest and transparent with them. And I said, guys, I'm exhausted. Like I was like exhausted. I said, I'd be super happy to sell. Right now, my company is just break even. It's not worth anything. I'll make you a deal. You come back in 2 years. In 2 years, I will be back to profitability. You make me a decent offer and I sell. I don't want to sell now because there's no value in the company, but I want to thank you for coming and visit me and offer you a deal in 2 years. And they said, no, we're not going to do that. Actually, we're going to do something a little bit different. They said, you're going to go with your brother. You're going to go back home. You're going to do a proper business plan or where you want to be in 2 years. and we come back next year and look at the business plan. So, okay. We did a business plan. How can I put it nicely? That was extremely optimistic. Somewhere
They
between.
all are. They always
They all
are.
are.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Right.
the point of a business plan, right? There was somewhere between very optimistic to La La Land. So I show that to them and say, okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to take your EBITDA in 2 years. We're going to pay now 11 times this EBITDA, and we're going to give you 85% cash and 15% earnout. And at that point, I thought it was a friend who was doing a practical joke or something like that, because it was too good a proposal. Obviously, I couldn't say no. Long story short, I end up making more with the 15% earnout than I did with the 85% cash. And we grew the company. So I was back to probably 11 million. And with them between 2015 and 2019, we grew the company from 12, 13 million EBITDA revenue to 50 million revenue, 10 million EBITDA. And that's when I sold to them the remaining of my shares and exited completely. Sorry, I was too long.
I have questions. Okay,
Yes.
so that sounds like an ass kicking, because you're already at your wits end a little bit. You've already been getting your ass kicked like we all do, but it's another level when you have to lose your staff that you consider family. You just it just weighs on you. Wake up at 2 a.m. You work until 2 the next. You work 12 hours the next day. I know I recognize the strain a little bit. So would you have done anything in that? But it was a little bit of luck, right? And a lot of right decisions. But would you have done something different in that timeline?
Hell yeah.
Okay,
so
what would it be?
First of all, it's a lot of luck and a little bit of good decision, if you want to be strictly honest. And you know what? Talking to new founders made me do a little mental exercise. I say, okay, let's imagine I'm starting New Access, still in 2000, same market condition, but with the experience I have now. And I'm not talking knowing in advance the global financial crisis, because nobody could know that in advance. But knowing in advance, and that's one of the first things I said to all my clients, it's not like if shit will happen, it's when shit will happen, because shit happens. And stuff like that. I say, okay, what's the total in dollars and in years? What the total amount I could have saved just by making better decision? And I came with a number which is 50 millions and 5 years. I would have sold 5 years earlier and 50 million more just if I was better at my job.
I've read a bunch of your stuff, and you say that all the time, that the founders, they wait 5 years too late. All the time. All through your writings, you talk about, no, you should have got out 5 years ago because you're screwing it up now.
Yeah,
Right?
and starting to sell 7 years earlier. You start like my case, it's not only that I was not prepared to sell, I was not even considering selling as an option. And I got fantastically lucky that the PE who bought my company were actually good guys. They could have totally screwed me over, but like easily. And I just got lucky on this one. And I don't want ever to any of my clients rely on luck. That's why I teach them that you do due diligence on private equity. You learn the language, you prepare for an exit, you like all that stuff. That none of this I did. And that did cost me money. It's not their fault. It's not that they're bad people. I would just, even to the same people, I would have negotiated differently and sold better.
So let's do a scenario for education's purpose. Someone's at, let's say, 6 million in revenue, 2.5 million in EBITDA, for whatever reason, right? Whatever that reason may be. Single founder. They own all their intellectual property. They have services that are recurring revenue, right? At what point, and then, kind of flashpoint, when you start you're saying get ready 7 years before you're ready, basically. 7 years before you're ready to get out.
No. 3 years before you're ready to get out. But you, in my opinion, humbly, you're approaching the situation from the wrong end. The first question you have to ask yourself as a founder, and that's also part of the initial conversation I have with founders. And that's very, very, very part of my go, no go decision with a founder is asking him, what's your number? What do you need? What the amount of money you need to not have to work a single day in your life if you don't want to? And they all answer, oh yeah, but I want to keep working. Fine. Go work for a charity or go find a job. But money can never be a factor in the next step you do. And I'm so fantastically happy that I got to that point that I can say, go fuck yourself to a founder who would pay me a lot of money just because I don't think I'll bring value. And I do that a lot. I do not go in a company that I think I don't bring value. Doesn't mean I'm never wrong. I can think I bring value in being wrong, but I never go willingly knowing that, okay, I can extract some money from that guy, but I don't think I'll bring tons of value. So what's your number? And it's funny because everybody thinks the numbers are going to be massively different. And actually there is a number that's quite universal. And the number you need in the Western world to live with never having to work a single day in your life is roughly around 40 million.
40 million.
40. Yeah, it's a very, very simple calculation, right? When you have a capital like that, especially if you have kids, your goal is to leave 40 million to your kids, right? You don't want to spend that money. And the good example I give to why you don't want to spend your money is one of my best friend is an Ashkenazi Jew, and he has a 90-year-old grandmother. And the 90-year-old grandmother is always worried about money, like, oh, will I have enough? And finally, my friend went and see his grandmother and he said, listen, with not changing a penny in your lifestyle, spending exactly what you spend right now, you can live till 110 and never have lacking any money. And she'll look at him and say, what happens after that? So like what you want is to leave the 40 million to your kids, right? Or to leave the capital to your kids. Or even if you don't want to leave it to your kids, you want to be sure you're never going to be poorer than last year. So that means you have to live in the revenues of your assets. So very simple calculation. 5%, 40 million, give you 2 million per year. The tax man will roughly take half and you can live comfortably in a 1 million per year revenue. So that's why I always say roughly 40 million. So in your previous example, your 2.5 million EBITDA is roughly at 25 million, 20, let's say 20 to 30, depending on the market, on what's recurring revenue and how good your advisor is to sell your company. Roughly somewhere between 20 and 30. So you need to get at least another 10, 15 million. So you need to grow your EBITDA to 4, 5 million. So now the question is how fast, and how do I get from my 8x to EBITDA to 12x to EBITDA? That's when you start working. So I'd say if you are a 2.5 million EBITDA company, you're 2 years away from a good exit at 40 million in general.
It's interesting because I've definitely had this conversation with more than a few people, and typically it's from the founder's perspective, not from someone looking from another room, right? So so typically from a founder's perspective, there's no basis in reality, right? And it's that's not true. Some basis in reality, but no basis in experience, right? Very few of us have had multiple exits. I've probably out of 120 people I've interviewed in this podcast, I bet maybe 10 or 15 of them have had 2+ exits at a time. It's kind of a home run and you're done, right? And that's typically.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is not an awesome question, but I'm still going to ask it. Like, what are these, when you first come into these situations, what are some of the stupid things you see? Like you come in, you go, oh my God, other than revenue, obviously revenue issues or whatever, right? What are some of the things you come in and you're like, okay, that's obviously these 5 things or these 3 things or whatever. This is all clearly horse shit, right? What is, I mean, from your experience?
So my experience, and that's always how I start my work. Most founders do not know themselves and they do not know their company. I'm yet to meet entrepreneur who gave me a good answer to what's your number. Yet to meet an entrepreneur say, yeah, I understand the question. I did the calculation. I would be comfortable selling at 50 million. So you have the guys who say, oh, I'll be super happy with 5 million in my bank account, which he strongly believes at that point. He's just wrong. And the other hand is, oh, I want to sell for 1 billion because like I'm as smart as Elon Musk.
Reasons, right?
Yeah,
reasons,
but
right?
you went from 1 million EBITDA, from 0 EBITDA to 2 million in 10 years. So to get to 2 million to 100 million, which what you need to sell for 1 billion, like you need to have a hell of a plan. And if that's your plan, I'm not the right guy for you. That's not what I do. I'll bring your company to 100 million valuation. And if you want to go fast enough to 1 billion, I'm not the right guy for you. So they don't know themselves. They don't know their company. That's like very, very, very basic, simple things. Do you have the right numbers of your company? 90% of the time, the answer is no. Like I still meet founders who do 1 million EBITDA and who get their numbers quarterly. Like, yeah, perfect. Like now you're flying your plane without a GPS and you get, oh, you overshot your airport by 200 miles. Too late.
Or you're getting your GPS 24 hours after you need it.
Yeah,
right.
exactly. Or you have the guy who get a 50-page Excel spreadsheet every month that are completely impossible to understand and to derive any decision. So do you get every month the 10 numbers you need to run your company? How do you get them? Are they correct? One example. What's your USP? What's your unique selling proposal? What are you doing that other people are not doing? Very simple, basic question. How happy are your clients? How do you know? Do you actually sit with your client or do you send a bullshit form that say evaluate this from 1 to 10 and say, oh, I have 95% customer satisfaction?
This sounds a lot like EOS, a little bit. Like as far as the measuring stick. You ever heard of EOS, Entrepreneur's Operating System?
No.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like this particular thing here claims that if you there's only like 8 or 9 numbers you need to have in your head every day, every week, every month. And the moment you start to see any of those things change, right, then you understand something is amiss or a muck and you can actually make a correction.
Yeah.
In the engineering world, there's the idea of an agile software development. It's where you have what did I do yesterday? What am I doing today? What do I have need help with? Right.
Yeah.
There's the idea, the old school way where you literally, you plan 6 months and the next like 7 months. It never works.
Yeah. So agile versus waterfall, it works. It's a very good way to analyze a company. Having done agile development for a big part of my life, in a company and in a founder's job, you need some kind of agile with a plan. You cannot strictly react, and lots of them strictly react. But if you want to exit, at some point you have a plan, and that's why I have a methodology that called Apex, which is like assess, plan, execute, and exit. So you still need a plan. I give you an example. Like, how do you grow? Like, that's 10 questions to how do you grow? Will I grow organically or will I do M&A? By the way, answer is always M&A. Do I?
That's fantastic.
Yeah, always. Yeah. It's always like, it's free money. It's cheap. It's not easy, but it's feasible and it's such a shortcut. Do you upsell? Do you cross-sell? That means, are you building another product? My whole life was cross-selling. This was partly a mistake, but my whole life was, okay, I have this fantastic client base. It's so much easier to sell new shit to existing customer than to go buy new customers. So I was a lot focusing on cross-selling. Also, M&A is very good for cross-selling because you buy something else that you sell to your clients, etc. Do I change geography? I tried that multiple times, and that was almost always constantly a failure. Oh, let's open an office in Miami, and 2 years and 2 million down the line say, well, but you know what? There's no really private banking in Miami. So, and all this question, you still need a little bit of a plan.
Alexis, we're out of time, but I could talk to you for an hour. So we may have to do this again. Thank you very much for doing this. Seriously, I think we should probably. I think you and I are going to talk offline. It's awesome. Thank you.
Anytime you want to have me, I'm available.
Thank you.